up, a cinemashogun here, and we finally have ourselves an update in the story about the 3 Kansas City Chiefs fans who were found frozen to death in their friend's backyard. Now, last time we checked in on this story, the families of the men who died were all fighting. They were arguing over how the different families were handling the case. Some of the family members for some of the victims wanted to lay back and be quiet and just, allow law enforcement to do their thing, while others were pushing for law enforcement to act more quickly, to, pay more attention to this case, because it seems as if they kind of blew this case off from the beginning. And some of the family members for the men who died feel as if they were blown off by investigators and they weren't given any information. So we know that the families were at odds. Well, now, some of the families are threatening to sue Jordan, and Jordan is threatening to sue the families. It's an all-out cluster freak of a situation. And this situation could have been avoided if law enforcement handled this case better to begin with. I really don't like how law enforcement handled this case for the first few weeks. Well, for the first couple of months, because it almost took a month or so for this case to really get attention. But I don't think they should have written this case off from day one, saying that it's not a homicide, no homicide investigation. They stated all of that in under 24 hours after the men were found dead. I feel as if they should have been more open with the families of the victims. They shouldn't have been so quick to write this case off, because it made the families of the victims feel as if, there wasn't really anyone caring about this case. And it's not like we got the toxicology or the autopsy report at the time for them to immediately rule out foul play. So I do think they dropped the ball at the beginning. I don't know how things have been going, since then. But I understand why the families, or at least some of the members of these families, felt the way that they did. But now we're at a point where not only are the families fighting each other, now I guess Jordan, I'm guessing he's out of rehab, if he ever really even went. And he's threatening to sue the families. The families are threatening to sue him. A crazy situation, but let's dive right into this article and figure out more. Jordan Willis, the Kansas City Chiefs watch party host whose friends were found mysteriously dead in his snowy backyard, is considering a defamation lawsuit against the men's families after they publicly aired their theories that he was involved in his friends' deaths, a source close to him has revealed. Meanwhile, as the men's families await answers about their loved ones' deaths, the father of David Harrington said his family intends to file a wrongful death lawsuit. There will be a wrongful death lawsuit, and a private investigator will more than likely be a part of that, said Harrington's father. Harrington also said that he did not disagree with the test findings about the substances that were in his son's system, but he was not buying that his son took those substances on his own free will. He loved life, the elder Harrington said of his son. I am incredibly sure that the outcome of this was not intended. I believe he intended to get drunk, he says. And particularly at his age, I couldn't blame him. I couldn't stop him. There's none of that, but the substances, I'm not buying that. I'm not arguing that that was not what they found in his system, but how did it get into the system? We still don't know. Now, the way that this guy has been explaining things, it kind of confuses me or throws me off, because I think what they're trying to tell the world, the message that they're trying to send, is that, their kid wouldn't have done this knowing that he was going to die, that he didn't purposely try to take himself out. I think that's one of the points they're trying to make. Now, he could have partaken in a substance thinking it was something else, thinking he was just going to get high and have fun, and then it turned out to be deadly. And I think that's like the missing link here, that I don't know if they understand that or not. And I don't know if it's confusing to me, because it seems like they're trying to put it out there in the public. We want the public to know that he wouldn't do something like this. He would not want to die. He loved life. And yeah, he could have loved life and thought that he was taking a bump or taking a hit or a snort or whatever the hell you want to call it, and it turned out being something deadly. So I don't know if there's a disconnect there or what, but the family, or at least this family, they're doubling down, saying that, hey, yeah, we know there's stuff in their system, but I don't think that stuff was purposely in his system. I don't know. He said he's a drinker. I don't know if he's alluding towards, like, he thinks that maybe Jordan spiked or Cosby'd his drink with something. I don't know. But yeah, he's doubling down on thinking that he didn't do this on his own free will. This was given to him against his knowledge. So let's go forward. A source close to Willis says on Monday that the HIV scientist, who has since moved out of his Kansas City home and spent a stint in a rehab facility, has been left with no choice but to consider slander and defamation lawsuits against these families, friends, and significant others who have baselessly accused him in a smear campaign on every public forum, willing to give them a platform to blame and point fingers. The latest news story regarding a wrongful death lawsuit is a completely shameless attempt to get more attention when nothing else has even been released yet by the police department, the source says. I recognize these families are grief-stricken, but grief is not an open-ended excuse to say whatever you want publicly without repercussion, and they've completely crossed the line. Not only have their wild accusations changed as more details were released by the police department from the beginning, they've allowed themselves to get caught up in the TikTok theories and internet conspiracies, trying to turn this into a TV drama. The families refusing to accept that their sons could have possibly done drugs willingly are completely reckless, the source said. It's not okay for them to try to ruin Jordan's life and reputation forever simply because they aren't able to accept the possibility that their loved ones voluntarily partook in behavior that cost them their lives. The source said Willis looks forward to having the opportunity to be able to clear his name. Now, I understand where this source is coming from somewhat, but I also understand where the families are coming from. If Jordan Willis didn't want all of this heat on his back, he could have been more transparent and more open instead of saying, oh, I have no idea what's going on. But what's getting lost here is the fact that Jordan changed his story 15 times. Yeah, the families, they're coming out with accusations. Once more information comes out, maybe their accusations change a little bit. Yeah. But Jordan's story changed so much within the first couple of weeks of, once the story gained popularity, the story changed so much to the point that people were forced to no longer believe Jordan. It didn't have to do with conspiracies or TikTok. And yeah, there's plenty of that going on. But even people who were more on Jordan's side of things, over time, they were forced to no longer trust the guy because he, or better yet, his lawyer, was changing the story every single night that he appeared on the news. So the details changed so much, and the story was just unbelievable to begin with. I have no connection to the men who died. So, yeah, I think it's totally believable that they did something that was, not what they thought it was, and it turned out being deadly. But I do think that Jordan has some involvement in this. I'm not saying he created the stuff. I'm not even necessarily saying he gave them the stuff. But Jordan was there. 3 men were dead in Jordan's backyard for days on end. Did Jordan partake in any of this stuff? Obviously, Jordan going to rehab is basically him admitting that he has a problem with substances. So Jordan's not totally innocent in all of this either. Maybe he's not responsible or directly, responsible for these guys' deaths, but he's not like totally disconnected from this situation and the way they're trying to make it seem. The men were found dead in his backyard after partying with him. You can't just totally try to disconnect yourself and distance yourself from the situation as if it has nothing to do with you and it only has something to do with the 3 men who died. So I don't like that. I don't like that it's gotten to the point where lawsuits are being flung left and right. This all could have been avoided. There wouldn't have been as many accusations made towards Jordan if police got in front of this and if investigators got in front of this from the beginning and silenced a lot of that noise, and if they talked to the families and reassured the families that they were doing everything they could, but instead they ignored the families and every opportunity that they could. They basically said there's no foul play here, nothing, even though to this day, as of right now, even at the time of this recording, we're still waiting on answers. That's another thing that I think people have probably forgotten because the news cycle runs so quickly, but make no mistake about it, we don't have any answers yet. Yeah, they're threatening lawsuit after lawsuit, whatever. We don't have the autopsy reports in front of us or the toxicology report. Yeah, they came out and said, we have some early results. We don't have the actual report. We're still waiting on investigators and law enforcement to do their job. Who knows how long that's going to be? But I just want it to be understood that this story is not really over. We don't have any answers from law enforcement yet. The families are still, at the time of this recording, they're still waiting. They're still waiting. So the world is still spinning. News stories breaking out every day. Most of you all are already balls deep in another case and you don't even care about this case anymore. But these families are still waiting on answers. We're still waiting to see if law enforcement finds any connection with Jordan and the substances that were taken. We're still waiting on a lot of things. We may never get those answers. And hell, if we do get the answers by the time we get them, most people will have forgotten this story. But the families will still be here, grieving, wanting to know what actually happened. And that's what's important. But for now, let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. While you're down there, if you're feeling generous and you want to donate to the channel, you can do so via CashApp. Or you can help the channel for free by liking and subscribing. But with that being said, I'll talk to you all soon in the next one.